At a certain point in this story, a Brown University professor is going to give you the answer, a specific name, a specific year, even a coat of arms. It will sound like someone finally cracked it after 300 years. November 1680, the Taunton River, Berkeley, Massachusetts, just south of Dayton on the south coast. A Puritan minister named Reverend John Danforth was walking the riverbank at low tide when something stopped him cold. A sandstone boulder half buried in the riverbed, 40 tons, 10 feet long, 5 feet high, and carved into its exposed face dozens of strange inscriptions, triangles, human figures, lines that ran like writing but matched no language Danforth had ever seen. He knelt in the mud and started sketching. His drawings still exist today. They're in the British Museum in London. The rock was kind of impossible to miss, which made it stranger that no European had formally documented it before. Cotton Mather, the most powerful Puritan minister in New England, wrote about it in 1690 in his book, The Wonderful Works of God Commemorated. He had never actually seen the rock himself. That didn't stop him from declaring the symbols were, in his words, deeply engraved by something no man alive could explain. He believed they were satanic. However, most people who visited in person landed on a simpler explanation. The Wampanoag, the indigenous people of this exact coastline who had lived on the south coast of Massachusetts for thousands of years, were known to carve petroglyphs into stone. The imagery matched a hunting scene, a great battle, a possible shipwreck. Territorial markers were common. It fit. Even George Washington took an interest. Native American origin, nothing more. So everyone believed for the next 200 years. In 1912, a Brown University professor named Edmund Burke Delabarre began studying the rock's inscriptions differently than anyone before him. Not in person, through photographs, high-resolution images that let him examine the stone face under different light conditions, at different angles, zoomed into details the naked eye had missed for centuries. What he found, or believed he found, changed everything. Deep in the upper section of the rock, almost completely weathered away, Delabarre said he could make out letters. Not Native American petroglyphs, not runes, not the Phoenician characters that theologian Ezra Stiles had proposed back in 1783. Latin. He ran the analysis again. He cross-referenced the photographs. The letters, he claimed, spelled out a name, a Portuguese name, and beside it, a year, 1511. To understand why this mattered, you need to know about Miguel Corte-Real. Miguel Corte-Real was a Portuguese explorer. In 1501, he sailed west from Lisbon with 3 ships commissioned by the King of Portugal to chart the North American coastline. He reached Newfoundland. He kept sailing south. He was never seen again. His brother Gaspar launched a search expedition. Gaspar's ship also vanished. A third brother, Manuel, went after both of them. Manuel made it home. The other 2 did not. For 4 centuries, no one knew what had happened to Miguel Corte-Real. However, Delabarre had an answer. In his 1928 book, Dighton Rock, a study of the written rocks of New England, Delabarre published his full translation of the inscription. The message, he said, read, I, Miguel Corte-Real, 1511. In this place, by the will of God, I became a chief of the Indians. He also claimed to see Corte-Real's personal coat of arms carved into the stone, a shield, a crown, a cross. According to Delabarre, a Portuguese explorer, lost for 10 years, had survived, had sailed or walked from Newfoundland all the way to the south coast of Massachusetts, had lived among the Wampanoag people, had risen to become their chief, and had carved his name and the date into a rock in the Taunton River before he finally died. Right here, 11 miles north of Swansea, it was the most dramatic discovery in the history of New England. However, there was a problem. No one else could see it. Other researchers examined the same photographs. They studied the same section of stone face under the same light conditions. They looked where Delabarre looked. The letters weren't there. What Delabarre had read as Miguel Corte-Real was, in the judgment of later scholars, the natural weathering of sandstone, cracks, erosion grooves, and mineral shadows that, to an eye desperately searching for a pattern, could be shaped into letters, into a name, into a coat of arms. Cotton Mather had never seen the rock and declared it satanic. Edmund Burke Delabarre had spent years studying it. He'd seen a dead explorer who wasn't there. However, that left the original question completely unanswered. Here is what historians and archaeologists have concluded after 340 years of study. The inscriptions on Dighton Rock are almost certainly Native American in origin, probably Wampanoag. The imagery, a hunting scene, a great battle, a possible shipwreck, matches petroglyph traditions found throughout New England. Most scholars agree on this point. However, the rock cannot be dated. Radiocarbon dating requires organic material, bone, charcoal, plant matter. Dighton Rock is pure sandstone. The age of the carvings is completely unknown. They could be 3,000 years old. They could be 300. They could have been carved the year before Reverend Danforth stumbled upon them. Miguel Corte-Real almost certainly never made it to the south coast of Massachusetts, but he was also never found anywhere else. The rock sat in the Taunton River for at least 3 centuries. In 1963, during construction of a coffer dam, state officials finally removed it for preservation. It now sits in a small museum inside Dighton Rock State Park, 100 acres, 11 miles north of Swansea. You can drive there this weekend. Stand in front of it. Look at the inscriptions yourself. They still won't tell you anything. Let me know what you think in the comments. Wampanoag petroglyphs? A Portuguese explorer who became a Native American chief? Something no one has thought of yet. I want to know where you land on this. If you want more stories like this, strange, unbelievable, and every single one of them real, the next one is right here. Until next time.